You gonna help us out tonight?
What do you think I'm here for? Where are they, boys?
New Orleans! New Orleans!
Billie Holiday was one of the most influential jazz singers of all time. She had a thriving career for many years before she lost her battle with addiction. Holiday was born Eleanor Fagan on April 7, 1915 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Some sources say her birthplace was Baltimore, Maryland, and her birth certificate reportedly reads Eleanor Harris. Holiday spent much of her childhood in Baltimore, Maryland. Her mother, Sadie, was only a teenager when she had her. Her father is widely believed to be Clarence Holiday, who eventually became a successful jazz musician, playing with the likes of Fletcher Henderson. Sadie married Philip Goff in 1920, and for a few years, Holiday had a somewhat stable home life, but that marriage ended a few years later, leaving Holiday and Sadie to struggle along on their own again. Sometimes Holiday was left in the care of other people living in extreme poverty. Holiday started skipping school, and she and her mother went to court over Holiday's truancy. She was then sent to the House of Good Shepherd, a facility for troubled African American girls, in January 1925. Only 9 years old at the time, Holiday was one of the youngest girls there. She was returned to her. Holiday dropped out of school in the 5th grade and found a job running errands in a brothel. According to Donald Clark's biography, Billie Holiday, Wishing on the Moon, she returned there in 1926 after she had been sexually assaulted. When she was 12, Holiday moved with her mother to Harlem, where she was eventually arrested for prostitution. When there wasn't an opening for a dancer, she auditioned as a singer. Long interested in both jazz and blues, Holiday wowed the owner and found herself singing at the popular Pod and Jerry's Log Cabin. She renamed herself Billie after the film star Billy Dove. This led to a number of other jobs in Harlem jazz clubs, and by 1933 she had her first major breakthrough. She was only 20 when the well-connected jazz writer and producer John Hammond heard her fill in for a better-known performer. Soon after, he reported that she was the greatest singer he had ever heard. Her bluesy vocal style brought a slow and rough quality to the jazz standards that were often upbeat and light.
You're kind of lonely. And no.
This combination made for poignant and distinctive renditions of songs that were already standards. By slowing the tone with emotive vocals that reset the timing and rhythm, she added a new dimension to jazz singing. With Hammond's support, Holiday spent much of the 1930s working with a range of great jazz musicians, including Benny Goodman, Teddy Wilson, Duke Ellington, Ben Webster, and most importantly, the saxophonist Lester Young. Together, Young and Holiday would create some of the greatest jazz recordings of all time. They were close friends throughout their lives, giving each other their now famous nicknames of Lady Day and the Prez. Sympathetic to Holiday's unique style, Young helped her create music that would best highlight her unconventional talents. Sympathetic to Holiday's unique style, Young helped her create music that would best highlight her unconventional talents. With songs like This Year's Kisses and Mean to Me, the two composed a perfect collaboration. It was not, however, until 1939 with her song Strange Fruit that Holiday found her real audience. A deeply powerful song about lynching, Strange Fruit was a revelation in its disturbing and emotional condemnation of racism. Holiday toured with the Count Basie Orchestra in 1937. The following year, she worked with Artie Shaw and his orchestra. Holiday broke new ground with Shaw, becoming one of the first female African-American vocalists to work with a white orchestra. Promoters, however, objected to Holiday for her race and for her unique vocal style, and she ended up leaving the orchestra out of frustration. Striking out on her own, Holiday performed at New York's Cafe Society. She developed some of her trademark stage persona there, wearing gardenias in her hair and singing with her head tilted back. During this engagement, Holiday also debuted two of her most famous songs, God Bless the Child and Strange Fruit. In 1939, after singing her song Strange Fruit, So sadly, YouTube decided to mute the audio for copyright issue, but if you're interested in hearing Strange Fruit, the link will be down below. All right, now we got that out of the way, let's get back to the video. Holiday received a warning from the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, a government agency which lasted from 1930 to 1968, to never sing the song again. Holiday refused and kept singing the song. FBN Commissioner Harry Anslinger believed Holiday to be the symbol of everything that America had to be afraid of. Holiday's voice could be both quiet and strong at the same time. Songs such as God Bless the Child and Gloomy Sunday expressed not only her undeniable talent, but her incredible pain as well. Due to frequent racial attacks, Billie Holiday had a tough time touring and spent much of the 1940s working in New York. Her record company at the time, Columbia, was not interested in releasing Strange Fruit, a powerful song about the lynching of African Americans in the South. Instead, Holiday recorded the song with the Commodore label. Strange Fruit is considered to be one of her signature ballads, and the controversy that surrounded it and some radio stations even banned the record, which actually ended up helping it by making it a hit. Over the years, Holiday sang many songs of stormy relationships, including Tain't Nobody's Business If I Do and My Man. These songs reflected her personal romances, which were often destructive and abusive. Holiday married James Monroe in 1941, already known to drink. Holiday picked up her new husband's habit of smoking opium. The marriage didn't last, they later divorced, but Holiday's problems with substance abuse continued. Her boyfriend at the time was trumpeter Joe Guy, and with him she started using smack. After the death of her mother in October 1945, Holiday began drinking more heavily and escalated her drug use to ease her grief. She was also addicted to smack because she'd been chronically taken advantage of as a minor, and she was trying to deal with the grief and the pain of that. Johann Hari, who wrote the book Chasing the Scream, The First and Last Days of the War on Drugs, told WNYC. Despite her personal problems, Holiday remained a major star in the jazz world, and even in popular music as well. She appeared with her idol Louis Armstrong in the 1947 film New Orleans, albeit playing the role of a maid. And also she was resisting white supremacy, and when she insists on continuing on her right as an American citizen to sing Strange Fruit, Anslinger resolves to destroy her. And guys, please remember the part where Anslinger said that he wanted to destroy her. It's going to come up later in the video. Unfortunately, Holiday's drug use caused her a great professional setback that same year. She was arrested and convicted for narcotics possession in 1947. Sentenced to 1 year and a day of jail time, Holiday went to a federal rehabilitation facility in Alderson, West Virginia. Released the following year, Holiday faced new challenges. Because of her conviction, she was unable to get the necessary license to play in cabarets and clubs. Holiday, however, could still perform at concert halls and had a sold-out show at the Carnegie Hall not long after her release. With some help from John Levy, a New York club owner, Holiday was later to get to play in New York's club Ebony. Levy became her boyfriend and manager by the end of the 1940s, joining the ranks of the men who took advantage of Holiday. Also around this time, she was again arrested for narcotics, but she was acquitted of the charges. While her hard living was taking a toll on her voice, Holiday continued to tour and record in the 1950s. She began recording for Norman Granz, the owner of several small jazz labels, in 1952. Holiday also caught the public's attention by sharing her life story with the world in 1956. Her autobiography, Lady Sings the Blues, 1956, was written in collaboration with William Dufty. Fun fact, Diana Ross portrayed Billie Holiday in the movie Lady Sings the Blues, based on the book. Let's get back to the video. Some of the material in the book, however, must be taken with a grain of salt. Holiday was in rough shape when she worked with Dufty on the project, and she claimed to have never read the book after it was finished. 2 years later, Holiday had a hugely successful tour in Europe. Around this time, Holiday became involved with Louis McKay. The two were arrested for narcotics in 1956, and they married in Mexico the following year. Like many other men in her life, McKay used Holiday's name and money to advance himself. Despite all of the trouble she had been experiencing with her voice, she managed to give an impressive performance on the television broadcast The Sound of Jazz with Ben Webster.
Billie Holiday is one of a handful of really great jazz singers. Her blues are poetic, highly intense. Playing with her here today are some of the musicians who accompanied her back in the 30s and some of the greatest jazz records ever made. Milt Hinton on bass, Danny Barker on guitar, and O.C. Johnson on the drums. Billie Holiday.
My man don't love me.
Lester Young and Coleman Hawkins. Holiday's voice could be both quiet and strong at the same time. Though one of the highest paid performers of the time, much of her income went to pay for her serious drug addictions. After years of lackluster recordings and record sales, Holiday recorded Lady in Satin 1958 with the Ray Ellis Orchestra for Columbia. The album's songs showcased her rougher sounding voice, which still could convey great emotional intensity. Holiday gave her final performance in New York City on May 25, 1959. Not long after this event, Holiday was admitted to the hospital for heart and liver problems. She was so addicted. She was even arrested for possession while in the hospital. On July the 17th, 1959, Holiday died from alcohol and drug-related complications. More than 3,000 people turned out to say goodbye to Lady Day at her funeral, held in St. Paul the Apostle Roman Catholic Church on July 21st, 1959. A who's who of the jazz world attended the solemn occasion, including Goodman, Gene Krupa, Tony Scott, Buddy Rogers, and John Hammond. Now let's revisit Anslinger, whose focus was on eliminating Holiday for her song Strange Fruit. Holiday said she always thought of her father when she sang Strange Fruit. He died at age 39 after being denied medical treatment at a Texas whites-only hospital. Because of that memory, Holiday was reluctant to perform the song, but she did so anyway to inform people about the reality of life as a black man in America. It reminds me of how Pop died, she wrote in her autobiography. But I have to keep singing it, not only because people ask for it, but because 20 years after Pop died, the things that killed him are still happening in the South. Harry Anslinger attempts to silence her. And if you didn't know, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics was known to be extremely racist. According to the blog, Anslinger found Holiday to be dangerous and thought she created satanic music. She drew Anslinger's notice and he ordered Holiday to cease performing the song. Holiday refused and Anslinger ramped up his efforts to silence her. After one of Anslinger's men was paid to track Holiday and frame her for buying and using smack, she spent 18 months in prison. Upon her release in 1948, the federal government refused to renew her cabaret performer's license, mandatory for any performer playing or singing at any club or bar serving alcohol. When she checked into a New York hospital in 1959, her liver was failing and cancerous. She was emaciated and her heart and lungs were compromised. Despite her condition, she didn't want to stay there. They're going to kill me. They're going to kill me in there. Don't let them, she presciently told friends and family. Indeed, Anslinger's men, sensing a macabre opportunity, showed up at her hospital bedside, handcuffed her to the bed, took mugshots, removed gifts that people had brought to the room, flowers, radio, record player, chocolates, magazines, and stationed 2 cops at the door. Even so, as doctors began methadone treatment, Holiday began to improve, gaining some weight and improving slowly. But then Anslinger's men prevented hospital staff from administering any further methadone. She succumbed to death within days. The only surviving filmed version of Holiday performing the song is from the British cabaret television show Chelsea at 9, recorded on February 25, 1959, and released in March of the same year, just a few months before she died. Now, I can't confirm the truth of the allegations that Anslinger wanted to get rid of her, but it is a fact that Anslinger was present at her bedside when she passed away. It's well known that Anslinger was determined to target Holiday. This is why many people suspect that she was killed by the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, FBN. They even refused to renew her performing license, clearly attempting to hinder her career. Despite their efforts, she continued to perform. The fact that Anslinger hired people to keep an eye on her is further evidence of their intention to harm her. But anyway, Billie Holiday is considered to be one of the best jazz vocalists of all time. She has been an influence on many other performers who have followed in her footsteps. When asked why she never had any children, she stated, "If I had kids, my kids would hate me." During her lifetime, Billie Holiday battled internal and external demons. Yet, rather than give in to the pain and hardships she experienced, she used her voice to sing about and bring attention to racial injustices that she had witnessed. If you've reached the end of the video or enjoyed it, please remember to click the subscribe button. Bye!
I always knew I could sing because I always did sing, but I just did it for my own pleasure or for Mom. I never knew I could make any money out of it until I just had to, and Mother got sick and she couldn't take care of us anymore, and I wandered down to 133rd Street in a little nightclub, and